Hello Fast Fam, thanks for tuning in. I'm Craig Lieberman and I've been tinkering on cars since 1980. I've owned more than 40 cars in my life. Some were heroes, some were zeros. But never in my wildest dreams would I ever guess that 3 of my cars would go on to star in a motion picture franchise. My Supra, my GTR, and my Maxima all had starring roles in Universal's Fast and Furious movies. Over the next 3 years, I'd served Universal as a technical advisor. I helped choose the cars, procure the parts, oversee their builds, and support both production and post-production. I've got some great stories to tell, and that's why I created this channel. I hope you like the video. What's up everybody, Craig Lieberman back with another vlog for you. Today we have a very special guest in the studio. We have Robert Wilson. If you don't know his name, you weren't around the tuner scene in the early 2000s and late 1990s. All the graphics that you saw in the first movie, on the Supra, the Maxima, the Eclipse, the Jetta, all those cars, he did the graphics. On the second movie, same thing. Him and his team, Modern Image Graphics, was very well known in Southern California and around the country. They were doing cover cars for all the magazines, and they've been doing it for a very, very, very long time, way before the Fast and Furious movie. So today we're going to talk about how the graphics got made, who had what hand in what role for the design of these graphics, what they thought of the graphics, what the processes they went through to get them on the cars, and the challenges that they faced on set. So you and I go way back, magazine days. I don't even remember how we met originally.
I think it was, I think we were talking this, maybe your early iBlock days.
96.
Yeah,
96.
And you would come to Modern Image to get decals for all your custom cars. So,
Yeah.
you were a custom car guy, before all the Fast and Furious stuff.
We did the daughter's Beetle and the Honda Prelude for Super Street Tour.
Yep.
My Mustang was painted black at the time, and I think you did.
And
Oh, you did the graphics for that? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, TSW, iBlock, us, Ballistic, we had that Tour de Force and put on all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Sparko guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because we're all basically in the same area, about a 15-mile radius.
Yeah.
So when I went to work for Naira in 1998, and Super Street magazine was big. They were just getting ready to start the Max Power USA, but we were in competition with Turbo magazine and
Sport Compact
Car and all that. So you were doing a lot of custom cars because of your business, Modern Image Graphics, based in Huntington Beach. How did you start doing graphics for cars? Because your background wasn't doing graphics.
Yeah, well, I was always a custom car guy, and it really started mini trucking days, so turned 2 days before my 15th birthday, bought my first mini truck and started customizing it and truck clubs and everything like that. And one day, we used to get stickers done we used to get our back windows painted before there were stickers. Then these sticker machines kind of came in and we started getting our logos done for the truck clubs back then. And I thought, man, this is awesome, I want to do this. And I had a roommate and my best friend, and I sat him down, on the front lawn in our house in Bellflower back then, and said, hey guys, I want to start a sticker business. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, I want to cut stickers, we'll cut windshield stickers. And they're like, well, how much are you going to charge? Like, oh, I don't know, like it's $5, for a sticker. Like, you're crazy, you'll never make a living from that. And so, one guy said we were completely crazy. My other, roommate said, yeah, let's do it. And we both sold our vehicles to Japan back then because mini trucks were pretty popular, and kind of got a loan and bought our first machine. Didn't even know how to turn on a computer back then.
And that's how it all got started then. And so from there, it turned into, like, you were the only game in town for a long time. All the Super Street guys knew. All the editors worked on a different floor, but I knew all the guys and the photographers, RJ DeVera and all those kind of guys. Yeah. And if we needed decals for any project car on which we were working, we were doing it. And then just going through the magazines over the years, if you look, that little MI logo is Modern Image, and I kept seeing it over and over and over again. And of course I knew you and I knew the company and all that, but it was really getting to be something big with graphics on cars.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, kind of went from a mini truck and into the import scene, and we were in the heart of it. Southern California, Orange County, LA County. The magazines were all in LA or Orange County, so we were pretty blessed to be in that hotbed of it. And we had a very talented team. It was a small team. Geez, when we first started, there was probably 3 of us. in there. It was my wife and I to start with, and then it kind of expanded. But we always did whatever it took. You know, being in the magazine industry, it's always last minute, and the decals is always the thing that comes last. You know, you're gonna get your car painted, you're gonna get the upholstery done, you're gonna get the audio, your nitrous, and then that day when it's your magazine shooter the night before, you go, oh crap, I need to make my car look different than the other one that was on the cover last month, or have 20 sponsors that just supplied products for, you know, this car that's getting shot, and the logo's got to be on the car.
Right,
so,
the roll call. So
the roll call.
That was, everybody had to have the roll call. Yeah. So then let's go back right at that time as you were building an empire, more or less. How did you get involved in the franchise? Do you remember how it all started for you?
And the best story, it's so hard to remember some of this, but I really think it's because of you, Craig. I think that, you know, I know in between you and Scott Centra and a few of the people that were there and talking to the Universal guys, I'm pretty sure it was you that, you know, told them we were the guys that they needed to be able to use, you know, for this, because a lot of the cars, you know, they had the art department already started to work on concepts and stuff, and it was pretty graphic intense, and at that point it was completely outside of the box of anything that we were doing at that point.
Well, my recollection was that David Martyr, you remember David, right?
Yep.
I interviewed him too last summer.
All right, nice.
David Martyr said, we need a guy to put stickers on cars for logos and all that kind of stuff. And I said, I know a guy. I just happen to know a guy. And I think I asked Scott, I said, you think Modern Image would be interested? And I remember Scott saying, yeah, you know, Modern Image can do the decals, no problem. I said, this can be a big job. He says, call them, see what they said. And I think that's how it got started.
Yeah, I mean,
and then I think the next thing was a meeting with you and David up at the Picture Car Warehouse or something like that. Does that ring a bell?
I can't remember if it was Picture Car Warehouse, which was in LA, or if it was at Universal. But we had at least 2 meetings. One about graphics and one about potentially casting one of our vehicles at that point too. And I can't even remember if the vehicle came first or the graphics came first. You know, I can't remember.
So you had a silver 3rd generation Eclipse, that 3rd gen?
Yeah, 3rd gen Eclipse. It was
brand new.
They had just come out, and we had actually had support from Mitsubishi, and we were building it to debut at Import Auto Salon at that point.
It was a hard top.
It was a hard top.
I remember the magazine cover.
Yeah, we had a Cabriolet later that was also on the cover of the magazine.
That car would have been whose car in the movie? That
would have been the green Eclipse. So
son of a bitch.
It would have been, you know, the hero car. So I mean, it made it in. It was in at Race Wars. And in the credits at the end, not too many people know that it even existed, but it was this close to being the car. But it was such a new car, and with having to make so many replicas of it, 7 of them, I believe, the budget was going to be too high to replicate it, so they passed on it.
Wow. No. Okay, now that you say it, I remember seeing that cast and call. I only have a limited amount of pictures. Some of these memories have faded over the years.
Oh,
for sure.
All painted interior and fiberglass and the nitrous bottle. There's a lot of things from that car that made their way into cars into the movie. So, which was flattering. It was really cool to be able to see it.
We all borrowed ideas from one another.
Oh, you know, nobody has a unique idea anymore.
You can't do unique ideas because everybody just laughs at you. They're like, "What the fuck are you doing? That's not what you're supposed to do."
Yeah,
I get it. So there you go. So that car just missed out on destiny because of the expense of the cars. Because the Eclipse that we were buying, I think we were paying about $6,000 each for those cars.
Yeah, and there was abundance of them. And again, that 3rd gen car was just
brand new,
just hitting the dealers. I mean, we got so much hate when we built that car because it was non-turbo, all-wheel drive. We kind of just we dropped a bomb when we debuted it and had first time the complete painted interior and all glass work, and so it was pretty cool.
Those were the days when people changed every single part on the car, from the bumper to the bumper, and every part on the interior was touched.
Yep.
Right down to the door handles, the floor mats, the steering wheel, the shift knobs, the dash, everything.
All the details, and still in the cars that we're building today, I still do it, and it's fun for people to notice that.
Yep. So let's shift gears and let's talk about the designs on the cars. and how the graphics were made, the physical process of making the graphics.
So yeah, the design on the graphics, pretty unique for, you know, the time that we were at in the kind of vinyl and graphic industry. You know, most of it was single color, or it was 2 layers where it had an outline or a drop shadow. And as we started to work with the art department at Universal and they started showing us some initial sketches of what they were going to do, it was like,
this sucks.
This is
gay.
It's interesting.
All right, there you go.
I'm going to be PC about it.
Okay.
But yes, it was something that was completely outside of the box of what anybody had seen, and I think still to today, you know, you've never really seen it anywhere else except for in the franchise. But they. You know, one thing I got to learn working in Hollywood over the years is that, you know, they have an idea, they have a perception, they kind of see it through, just like we do on some of our car builds. We know exactly what it's going to look like before we even start. I think they know it, and we just have to learn it.
So then the process of making these decals, explain how the process works from start to finish.
Yeah, so, you know, again, in those days, most of it was die-cut vinyl. So a single color vinyl, it was cut on a plotter. We peeled the excess off and put a top tape on it to transfer it onto the car. When these graphics came out, they were really complex. And this was before digital printing. I mean, this is at the very, very inset. So your Supra, the orange Supra, is probably one of the very first, and it wasn't even digital at that time. That was a thermal resin machine by Roland, who we use all their machinery from day one at Modern Image Signworks. And we actually had to outsource that piece of it. So Troy Lee actually designed that front piece of your, you know, on your car, and that was thermal resin printed. And then all the rest of the decals were die-cut vinyl. And even on top of that print, we added all the different color highlights. And that was something from the art department, and it was constantly changing. And again, they kind of had it in their head how the light was going to get picked up, you know, nighttime, daytime. So they would have us add a little chrome sliver accent. Yep. And then they would add, you know, like, you know, yellow. I think even like the Maxima had, you know, a fluorescent yellow, almost javelin thing, right?
A laser beam coming out of it.
Yeah, and those weren't in the original design. That was as we went, and it would just start layering itself up. And then other graphics, you know, the RX-7, you know, where it kind of had the flying robot, you know, per se. That started out as a silver piece of vinyl that was cut. And then our airbrush artist, you know, airbrushed a gray, you know, a black fade onto it. And then we cut black vinyl and put that on top of it. And then we cut chrome highlights and put that on top of it. So, I mean, you talk about, and potentially some of those graphics might have had 10 different layers stacked on top of each other to get to the end result, where in today's day and age, you would just go into Photoshop, put all those highlights and accents in there, hit the print button, and everything would just be printed. And be on an air release material where, you know, the car wraps now, where you can do it, you know, without water. All that was applied with soap and water back then.
Man. And it was more than just getting all the layers right and all that. The placement of the decals was critical because you had to do it on multiple cars. We had 4, 5, 6 stunt cars, whatever it was. So all these little things had to be in the right places on both sides of the cars and on every car. So how did you manage that?
Yeah, so it's interesting just being able to get the graphic done, because again, we're talking about potentially 10 layers, then getting that onto the car, and then having 6 other cars. Most of the people thought, oh, there was only one car, so you just put the graphic on and you didn't know. Well, if the hero car had it in that chrome piece that came out on the bumper was 3 inches from it, then the rest of the 6 other cars that we did in record-breaking time all had to be in that same position too. So getting that system down and getting it to where we could deal with the perimeters of making sure when they said it was time to go live and film, that it was ready.
Being on set for the first 2 movies, I mean, the first one we filmed in California, we're at the Picture Car Warehouse in El Segundo for the most part, but you had to be on set there too. And then when we took you guys down to Florida to do that, I'd like to hear some of the stories about the challenges of fixing cars. So, and I think my viewers would like to too.
Being able to it was a very small business. I mean, we shipped decals all around the world. And like you said, we were on quite a few of the magazine covers and all over the place. But in the grand scheme of things, we're in 1,300 square feet. And I think there was, maybe at that time when the first movie came around, there was 6 of us that were there. And Picture Car Warehouse was in El Segundo. And so we would have to send teams back and forth. And there's, we had, maybe 3 plotters at our place. Remember, we had to buy, and I had to take a loan out from my in-laws to buy another machine because we had to have it in El Segundo. So we had to have a whole nother set of vinyl, a whole nother machine to be able to cut there. We would try and do as much as we could in Huntington Beach and then travel up to, so Huntington Beach to El Segundo, I think it's 30 miles, but it's LA. It could take you 2 hours, so it could take you 30 minutes, it could take you 2 hours. So we had to try and get as much done at the shop as we could. And then go up there. And there were no business hours per se. It's something that I still remember to this day. It's whatever it takes to get it done. You can't say can't. That was not allowed, and I've learned to have that in my family life now too. It's what will it take to make it happen? But we had a great team. We had, Jaime and Vic and Mike and Christina, so many people that, helped out through the time. And when we did the first movie, it was in El Segundo, so 30 miles away. Right. The second movie was in Miami, so we had the warehouse there. And again, small little business. We would send 2 people at a time, and we would spend a week to 2 weeks. So maybe Vic and Mike would go and spend 2 weeks there. They would come back, and myself and Enrico would go and spend a couple weeks. And then it got to where we got busy at the shop. Because again, if the SEMA show came around, or Hot Import Nights, or one of those shows, the whole industry was still coming to our shop, and we still had to keep that going. And I'm pretty sure we had to keep it somewhat secret that we were working on this movie and stuff too. It wasn't very well known that we were doing it. So it was interesting to be able to balance that, getting all the work done at the shop and dealing with the Picture Car Warehouse.
Yeah, now elaborate on that, but something to affect your lead-in could be. And the Picture Car Warehouse in Florida was no picnic. It was 20,000 square foot building. It was 100 degrees every day and 100% humidity and no air conditioning. Yeah. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So yeah, El Segundo being close to home, I could go sleep in my own bed, and it was great. It was LA, the weather that we knew. When we went to Miami and went to that 20,000 square foot warehouse, unair conditioned, 100% humidity, it was crazy, So for a California crew to go over there and do that, and be away from home, be away from your family, your friends, and be under, it was feast or famine. Either it was the most stressful time of your life, or you're sitting around doing nothing, waiting for it. So, which for me, both of them is equally as bad, because I start to self-destruct if I don't have something to do. So, being able to work in the warehouse there, especially for the second movie, we had, again, so same thing, we had to bring a complete setup and set up a shop there. And we were there for, I don't know, how many months were we there?
59 days was filming main production, and then second unit was doing other stuff.
Yeah.
But we were there, I think, June, July, I got to look, I think it was June through November, because I left right before Thanksgiving.
Okay, yeah, because it did get, spilled out. And I remember nights where it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and cars came in fresh from the paint because a couple of them got wrecked, and they had to be on set at 5 the next morning. And so I think that night I was there by myself, and there was either 7 or 8 cars that had to get done, and we didn't have the material for it. So 4 in the afternoon, we have to make calls all across the country to see who has these rolls of material that we need to have that night. And so same thing, I couldn't say can't, but I went to the art director and said, this is not going to be possible. And he said, anything's possible, Robert. What do you need? I said, well, I need this roll of material that I just sourced in Pennsylvania. It's 4 in the afternoon right now. They're going to close in an hour, and I need it here tonight. No problem. Order it. And that's when I learned about Sonic Air through UPS. So they that material got picked up, went to the airport on a private plane, came over, and at 1:30 in the morning, there was a knock on the warehouse door, and they delivered one roll of vinyl. It's probably the most expensive roll. I know that the shipping was like $450, you know, and that's what, 18 years ago, so imagine what that would be today. And then we had to cut that material and get it installed on all the cars and get it over there, and we made it happen.
Do you remember which car?
Well, again, we had 8 different cars. I know definitely it was one of them was the RX-7, and then the Supra, so what we called the Flying Afro Pick was one of the cars that we had to do, and then the what do we call the RX-7? Was that digital hexagon floating clouds or something on there? Something. Definitely interesting design.
Digital clouds or some shit like that, and the Afro Pick and all that. I remember sitting in the picture car where I got to sit in the air-conditioned side, and I had to do the rounds a few times a day to see what's going on. A lot of what I was doing was taking stock of what's damaged and what we're going to need to order and that kind of stuff. But for the decals, I never gave it a second of thought other than making sure that all the decals were going to go on the cars. I remember writing a memo. I found a copy of my memo. I have to show you this later on, but I have a whole file cabinet full of memos and stuff and documentations and invoices and everything else from production of the movies that I saved. Why I saved it, I don't know, but here we are. But there was a memo on there saying that the art director, Keith Brian Burns, brilliant guy, he was the art director. He was part of John Singleton's crew, you know, he was an interesting fellow. I Googled him once, and he's actually got quite an impressive resume. But you remember, he didn't care about cars. He wasn't a car guy, and he certainly wasn't a tuner guy. And he just didn't really comprehend what our objection was to the graphics on the cars. I actually had a booklet that I showed with Matt Farah about, I don't know, it's gonna be 10 years ago, with all the graphic designs that got rejected, which was good for a big laugh. So the ones that wound up on the cars could have been worse to start with. But I can't even imagine having to do that on 8 or 9 cars in one night. This is probably the time when we were jumping the bridge, remember? Because we had the RX-7 for the bridge jump. We had, which it didn't do the jump, but it was in the race. And the Supra did the actual bridge jump, and then one of the Skylines did the bridge jump and all that. So fixing those cars, all those scenes around where they were doing the 4-way race, that's probably what you were fixing them from.
Yeah, I think that's what must have been that. And the crazy part about it, again, it was so busy going on that in LA in the first movie, I got to go on set quite a few times and, you know, watch the filming. I don't believe, maybe once when we were on the second movie that I actually got to go watch. We were always in the warehouse, you know, doing all we seen was trucks come and go, loading and unloading cars. I got to see you and, you know, make sure that stuff was right and talk to the art director and yeah, like you said, I mean, you and I fought, you know, hand and foot all the time with the art directors because we kind of knew what the industry was and what people wanted to see, but they had their own vision of what it was going to be. And, you know, at the end of the day, it ended up turning out, and here we are talking about 20 years later.
That's funny you say that, because I remember having that discussion with a lot of people. R.J. DeVera, you know, the picture car guys, because they're all old white guys. A lot of them are older than I am now. You know, they've been doing it for a long time. And they know cars. The picture car guys know cars. And they're looking at the graphics. I remember Al Desario came up to me. He was the special effects coordinator. The guy who did the Camaro jump and all that. He passed a few years, 10 years ago now. But he said, is this kind of stuff that you kids do to your cars? No, don't group me in with this bunch, okay? But then I had a realization not long after probably 5-6 years after the movie, when people started copying the graphics, and we started to see them on street cars. There was that period of dead time from 2003 to about 2009 when no one in the U.S. gave a shit about those movies. It was just a joke. It was tuner cars, it was fake, it was whatever it was. But then people started copying the graphics on the cars. And I remember having those conversations like I was saying earlier. We'd say, oh my God, people are gonna just roast these cars when they come out. And then imagine my surprise, imagine your surprise when you see these decals and the graphic designs that we thought were absurd, that the people are copying them. And then it occurred to me, I think right about the time I was writing the book, I said to myself, I get why they had to do it, because they couldn't copy racing liveries for obvious reasons, right? It would be too obvious. They couldn't do anime or manga stuff because of licensing agreements. They couldn't copy the graphics that we're already doing on the tuner cars at that point, because all the background cars we're going to use are going to have graphics like that already. So if it's got a tribal graphic on our GTR, there's probably 12 cars in the background that also have tribal graphics. So at that point it made sense to me, but still it was difficult to digest. So what did you feel like when you started seeing people start to copy the graphics from the movie cars on their street cars?
Well, first I was flattered, you know, because that was, you know, we were part of that to make that all happen. But I was like, do you realize what you're putting on your car? You know, because again, the people in the industry, I don't think it was ever really accepted. It was part of the movie, so it was what it was. But I mean, just like we see in any kind of movie, whether it's Gone in 6 seconds or any of those, you know, those cars will become famous, and what's on those cars are gonna follow along with it. So, I mean, some of those ones that are the crazy multi-layers, and as we were starting to get calls for those and stuff, it was like, oh man, I don't know if I really want to redo those, because it was so much work to get something of that kind of quality with that many layers, and then be able to send it out to somebody and see if they were going to be able to install it themselves.
So what do the graphics cost if you were to do the super graphics for somebody back in 2001? What would it cost in 2001 dollars?
Well, I mean, I think back then it was going to be $1,500, and that was absurd. That was unheard of, because what we were doing then in a single color or two color, whether it was a tribal flame or checkers or something, was probably $200 to $300.
Okay. And what are they going for today? Do you have any idea?
I haven't. I'm so disconnected from it, but I know, I sold the business in 2005, so we got to do the complete first movie, second movie, and was in on some of the design and signed the contract for the third movie before I sold. But I know Modern Image in San Diego, I think it's modernimage.net, they're still doing it because people are replicating the cars. I'm sure you get this, answer those questions all the time. And the bummer part about it, all the way even back to then, is that the eBay guys hopped in there, and for $60 you had something that somewhat resembled the graphic, but it was trash. It was horrible. And if somebody wanted the real deal, authentic, they had to come to Modern Image Signworks, and they with the MI, and
right.
Yeah, and it was going to cost, because there's a lot of stuff behind it.
Now, can that stuff be replicated with the way they're doing it now with the modern printing techniques?
You could, and from 10 feet away, you may not be able to tell it, but from you had the Supra in your garage, that was material over material. The chrome was actually chrome vinyl that was cut. It was just a little sliver, on his eye, that made that reflection. So right. Even with modern printing, you won't get that. And I think that the art directors knew that too, that you're going to need that reflection, or you're going to need, we use a lot of neon, a lot of bright colors, even on the back of the Supra. I mean, that was a pretty neon Kawasaki lime green at that point.
Yeah. So that, I get it. I remember washing the car and having to be very careful as you drive.
Because all the little tips when the
grab a tip, and then it's fucking hell. And I knew I didn't want to have to fix that stuff.
But again, back then, what we know today is digital printing and all the wraps. It didn't exist. It was just in its very infancy.
How the world has changed. We don't see it anymore, do we?
No, the graphic stuff, it's very rare that you see a lot of that stuff. There's been some resurgence of it. You had said too, it's funny to kind of see the highs and the lows, where every car, when we were in it, had graphics on. That's how you differentiate yourself. Then it came to a point in time where there was nothing on any of the cars, and then the wraps started coming in, and we could do digital print and do photorealistic, and I think that kind of spurred things, again. Do
you miss that era?
I do. I miss the people more than anything. I'm still part of the industry. I'm thankful for that and stuff. The business side of it, man, it was so crazy. We were so out of control. So thankful for it, but family time, a lot of stuff got suffered from that and stuff. So I'm glad. I'm glad Enrico worked for me. Then he opened up his own business, his own Modern Image in San Diego, that we kind of has a licensing agreement. And so when it came time for us to sell, he was going to be the person that we were going to sell it to, and he's still to today. We started in '91, and here we are, 2020, he's still going.
20, god damn, it's 30 years.
Yeah, 91 out of you know, one bedroom, you know, didn't even know how to turn on a computer, you know, back then to kind of still see it. So every time I get tagged, you know, on Instagram, Facebook or something with one of the cars, or somebody sees, you know, something out or in a magazine, it still puts a smile on my face, you know.
Do you put cars up on your Instagram? What's your Instagram again?
Round 2 Designs is the Instagram. Yeah, for sure. You know, when people tag me, I kind of forget about it, you know. I mean, we're so busy in our normal lives. I mean, when you contacted me about coming on, it was like, oh man, this is so cool. I think you sent me some questions to kind of do a little bit of homework, and I was like, I don't know this stuff. It's been a long time. I had to dig into the archives. Even today, before the interview, I was searching for a Modern Image hat or a shirt or something. I have a big bin up in my attic of, you know, but all the hats are all squashed and all that kind of stuff. And the shirts are too big. I think I lost 15 pounds after I sold the business and started taking care of myself a little bit better. But yeah, great times and great memories. And so, you know, still I get to talk to you all the time. I still talk to Scott Centra, you know, all the time, and you guys are still involved in the automotive industry. RJ, I just seen him at a show too.
So best memory of working on the franchise?
I think the best memory for me, and I think we talked about before, was one late night in El Segundo at Picture Car Warehouse, and we were working on the green Eclipse, and we were working with the art director, and just, you know, finished out the side graphics, finished out the roof. You know, he had the wings kind of on the roof, did all the sponsor logos, all that stuff was signed off, and he came out and said, you know, the hood's a little plain. We need something on there. We need like a carbon fiber hood, but again, they're going to be filming in the next day, so they couldn't get a carbon hood. So no problem. So we call it wrapping, but we had to wet apply normal vinyl, not like the wrap stuff that you see today. We did the whole hood in carbon fiber vinyl.
One piece?
No, it was multiple pieces, because again, you know, so it was probably, you know, back then a 15-inch roll, you know, so seams and lining up the carbon. And again, the one thing with the movie stuff is that, you know, you always had a little bit of a distance. I mean, I'm sure some of these people, when they walk into some of these collections and museums, and they see the cars up close, you know, especially if it's not one of the hero cars, like your car, you know, was beautiful. Some of the stunt cars were not so beautiful, you know.
So you wet applied the carbon fiber decal.
Wet applied carbon fiber, then the art director, you know, came back out and said, you know, God, it's still pretty plain. And I was, you know, one of those hats I was searching for, you know, this morning, I was wearing. It had the MI logo. It had, you know, Modern Image Signworks on the back. And he said, isn't that logo that logo that's on your hat? That's your guys' logo, right? I said, yeah, that's the, you know, Modern Image MI. He's like, I think that should be on the hood. And I literally like darted over to the machine, cut a sticker, came back. It's probably a world record still. It was probably like 3 minutes, and we had that MI logo on the hood of the Eclipse. And from that day forward, it changed everything, you know, for that logo. We were fortunate enough to also have it on the hood of the Jetta too. But by far that memory, because now 20 years later, it's probably at least multiple times a month that I get tagged with somebody taking a picture of that hood from somewhere and sending it over.
I think that was the biggest logo on any car in any of the movies.
It was huge, and again, I mean, we were busting our ass. I think we might have broke even or lost money on that first movie, but we didn't care because we were part of it, you know. And again, it propelled our business to a whole different level. But yeah, it was pretty massive, and we did get the sneak, you know, Modern Image Signworks, you know, kind of in the front billing on, you know, I think on the skirt of the Supra. A lot of the cars have Modern Image Signworks and MI, so we're super thankful for that.
Yeah, so I think for me, speaking about best moments, you know, I was just some dude, like I tell the story a lot, that anybody could have really done what I'd done, you know, show them pictures in car magazines and, you know, find cars and all that other kind of stuff. So it's very fortunate. But what the coolest part for me was that little posse that we had, all the owners of the cars, right? Most of us got to be pretty close, or most of us was close before. But when we got to go to the back lot on Universal with our cars and go over there to the Alfred Hitchcock Theater in February before the movie released and see the pre-screening of the car, it was just us. You know, some of the crew people, Rob Cohen, some of those people, but they did it just for us. And we got to see that. That was pretty fucking cool, right? And then the other thing was when we got to go to the Hollywood premiere.
Yeah, I remember that pre-screening on the lot at Universal like it was yesterday. Because again, we were all just part of the industry. We were all kind of friends. You know, your guys' cars were in the movie. I think at that point too, still the trailer that they had modified for the first scene in the movie where the Civics went underneath of it was sitting out in the parking lot. I remember the first time I was like, what's going on here? Oh, we modified that. The car's gonna drive underneath it. And then we went in and seen the movie and seen that happen. It was pretty cool. I mean, it was funny with the Motec exhaust and multiple other things, but that theater was just the people, you know, like, you know, some of the art directors and the directors, producers in there, and then the core industry people were there. And it was, man, I felt so honored to be there. And to kind of, you know, once you start to see your name or your car or cars that you did, you know, now on the screen, it was amazing. And then we went from there just pretty quick to the actual movie premiere.
Yep.
And having the cars out there and having all the actors and having the lights and cameras and all that kind of stuff. And I think even afterwards, everybody came out and signed the cars, you know, I think the Jetta, they were signing the glove box and the different things like that. It's, man, just, that'll always stick with me.
Yeah, that was fun being there. Like, I mean, we were nobody, you know.
Yeah, I mean, well, we were somebody in the industry. Is why, you know, why they brought you in, Greg. Don't downplay it, you know. I mean,
to
again,
the world, we're nobody. We were
Yeah.
absolutely nobody. We were just people in the industry. But
we were having fun. We were passionate about something. That was our hobby, and I think, you know, we've lost that in some of the stuff. But I think we were all friends, mutually. We're into cars, so.
yeah, and look where we are now. 20 years later, this thing is still going on.
Yeah, and still in the cars, and see, you know, be able to see you go do appearances and be able to educate people on this stuff, and even, you know, call me up. I feel honored, and then bring these memories back up. You know, it's pretty cool.
Trying to get everybody. The memories are fading, and unfortunately, some of the people who actually worked on the pictures, you know, were in the business, they've started, you know, passing away.
Yeah. Again, I mean, it's crazy to think 20 years. I mean, it seems like it was 2 years ago,
right,
not 20 years ago. I was sweating in the warehouse, or, you know, at Picture Car Warehouse, and watching people pull molds of the monster tax, and a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I mean, I wish, you know, I'm sure you probably brought it in, but the more behind the scenes stuff that I got to see and be in those warehouses, even though we were busting our butt doing the stuff, but to be able to see everybody else, you know, doing their skill and doing their stuff, it was pretty amazing what comes out of those things. I give props to all those Picture Car Warehouse guys, and it's just, it truly is movie magic, and it happens in time frames that are next to impossible. It has to get done.
It's unbelievable. When I interviewed David Martyr, he was talking about that as well. About there is no can't, really. I mean, if you need it done, it doesn't matter. They'll fly parts over there. And they did it. You saw it. They'll fly parts
they do it. Again, I mean, you think about if they are ready to start filming and everybody's there, you know, actors, the cameramen, the lights, everything like that, and, you know, the car's not ready to go. I mean, it just wasn't an option. It had to be done. And whether we were still they were filming on the passenger side and we were on the driver's side still squeegeeing, you could probably see us, you know, our feet underneath cars in some of the scenes potentially, because it did happen.
Man, a lot of good memories. I think it was all worth it in the end. And you know, we got the stories, we got the pictures, we got the videos, but most of all, we have the memories, and always be thankful for that.
Thanks so much, Craig, for having me. You know, I just feel super honored that you had me come, that you made that phone call. You know, when you said, I have a guy that can do the decals, you know, it sits in my heart forever. It's creates great memories. You did great things for my family and friends, and, you know, glad that we're still friends, and can't wait for the next thing.
Yep, next thing, Fast 10.
Yeah.